crucial to ensure a transparent and quality environment for media buying, especially in order to drive effective media outcomes. Marketeers today need to be armed with tools, resources, and best practices to ensure that they are protected against content that might damage their reputation. Today's session throws light on several aspects pertaining to brand safety, which includes breaking down certain jargons, talking about best practices to follow, and to ensure transparency in this volatile environment. But before I proceed, let me share a little bit about MMA in as quickly a time as possible. MMA's mission is to enable marketers to drive innovation, enduring business value, stronger consumer engagement in an increasingly dynamic and connected world. As a not-for-profit body, we are the only one that brings the entire ecosystem under one roof by enabling ongoing education through reports, white papers, and training programs. We also inspire through use cases and awards. We are an 800-member strong community globally and a fastly growing chapter in India. And in fact, we have completed 10 years and are into our 11th year in India. Our programs at MMA are designed to drive learning, assessment, networking, research, and capability building. We are extremely proud to share with you our growing AMP community, which stands for Accelerated Modern Marketing Practices. The councils represent the ecosystem and drive education, thought leadership, build standards, and are represented through task forces such as MarTech, e-commerce, voice and audio, brand safety, amongst a few others. Now coming down to today's session, today's webinar covers the following. The specialists or the experts in today's panel attempt to help decode brand safety for marketers, learn how to ensure safe and transparent environment for brands can be created, insights on best practices to follow to ensure brand safety. So before we start the session, here are some quick housekeeping points which I'd like to share with our audiences. Please type in all your questions in the Q&A section. Please mention your name, designation, company. Please mention the speaker you would like to address this question to, and please keep your answers related to this discussion only. With that, I am delighted to introduce the participants at today's webinar discussion. I would like to begin with the ladies on this illustrious panel. May I request Shalini Kumar, who's the Area Media Lead, India Subcontinent, GSK Consumer Healthcare, to please turn on her camera. Welcome, Shalini. Then would like to invite the next lady in the house who would be leading and moderating this discussion, Monica Khurana, who is the country head MMA India. Welcome on board, Monica. Next up is Om Jha, who is the Associate Director Media at PepsiCo. Welcome, Om. We now have Kapil Ori, Head of Digital Marketing Dabur. A big welcome to you, Kapil, and glad to have you on board. We now have Nachiket Deole, who leads sales for India at Double Verify. Hi, Nachiket. And last but not the least, we have Govindaraj Avasarala, who heads enterprise marketing at Vodafone Idea Limited. Pleasure to have you all on board this panel. And now I leave it in the able hands of Monica to lead and take this discussion ahead. I'll see you all on the other side.
Thank you so much, Lloyd. And it's a pleasure to be talking to such a wonderful panel today. And as we've already set the context for the topic, just to sort of warm up this discussion, digital content, of course, is growing by leaps and bounds. And of course, brands see huge opportunity in terms of contextual targeting, placement, with the ability to be able to target relevant cohorts. However, whilst the growth in digital content consumption is high, it is also putting brands at risk in terms of their reputation. So they need to be doubly sure that their place, that the environments in which the ads appear are safe and appropriate. Therefore, this discussion becomes extremely critical, where brand safety and brand suitability both play very key aspects for us to be able to make the most of the opportunity available and yet minimize the risk. So with that said, I'm going to open this discussion up with a very fundamental question to my panelists. And I think I'll first take this question to the marketers on the panel. Let me start by bringing in the lady, Shalini. I want to ask you something very fundamental, and I'm going to take the same question, Om, to you as well. So what does brand safety mean to you as a brand owner? And why is it important for brands to place such an emphasis on brand safety whilst marketing? Your thoughts?
Thank you. Yeah, thanks, Monica. So I'll start with a little step backward, and I'll start with the creative effectiveness,
right,
which is determined by both the platform on which we are communicating and also the context of the content. And hence, brand safety becomes important in the context of the content, where it is the placement of my content on maybe an unwanted content like vulgarity or violence or even competing brands. So, however, there are certain other threats also when we talk about the unwanted placement, which is with respect to the wrong audience that we are targeting, or maybe it's the wrong geography, or maybe a wrong platform. But those tend more towards the brand suitability. Sorry. So for us, since brand safety is important, brand suitability also has an equally important role to play. While we are spending a lot of money to figure out the unsafe environment, non-human traffic, or even a wrong targeting, ineffective targeting is also resulting into the wastage of these spends. And hence it becomes very critical to have a balance between both of them. So while we are looking at what consumer wants or what consumer is interested in, where it is spending time on media, but also what platforms are suitable as per my brand requirements. So that's how the digital campaigns are looked, the way that we look at digital campaigns across our brands. Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. So I hear you. So the same question, Om, if I would bring to you, what would your take be on it?
Thanks, Monica. My take would be very fundamental on this one.
Mm-hmm.
And if I may draw an analogy with brands with human beings, just like human beings live, die, grow. Same happens with brand. They're born, they grow, they need nurturance, and if not taken care of, then they die. Now, one of the fundamental aspects of human evolution has been around safety. Yeah, and even Maslow calls it out that in the hierarchy of needs of human beings, safety, if I remember correctly, is pegged at number 2. And the same goes with the brands, that the brands would need the right amount of safe environment where they can thrive. Not the aspects.
I think we're losing you. Any connection issue? You want to try and go off video for a bit and go try?
I can hear you all well. Let's see. Is it better now?
Yeah. Please continue. Yeah. So you were saying.
Yeah. So for a brand to grow and thrive, it needs that net of safety, and that comes around from multiple points. And as Shalini was saying a while back, that it can come from multiple aspects. That is the brand is going in the on the right platforms where it would find the right audiences, or is it going to a platform where the brand can get more damage than nurturance? So brand safety is extremely critical. It's absolutely fundamental, and with growing.
I think we lost Tom. Okay, we'll wait for him to stabilize his connection. But yes, the analogy is very interesting. It is equated to human life for sure. And for all of us who are also parents, would almost feel like the way you protect a child and you want the child to be safe. It's similar that you want your brand to be safe and in the right environment. So with that, Nachi, let me bring this question to you, because you as a platform are working with a range of marketers who also have similar challenges and are trying to combat. So what's your take, and how would you look at the issue?
Thanks, Monica. Hi, everyone. Great to be here. So in a way, if you look at brand safety and suitability, those are two different terms, but at the same time, they're interlinked, right? So just to bring everybody on the same page, so brand safety refers to brands who are avoiding content which is generally considered inappropriate for any advertiser, right? Irrespective of the category you are in or the size of the enterprise you are, right? So those content pegs can be terrorism, hate speech, politically influenced content, or pornography, and so on and so forth, right? Which needs to be avoided by every single brand when they're advertising on digital media, right? And digital media is full of this kind of content, right? Especially when it comes to UGC, yeah. And that's when brand suitability kicks in, right? So once you've taken care of brand safety, which is a default function, which is a hygiene practice for every single brand, the evolved strategy is to also look at suitability, as Shalini also mentioned, right? Which is one is safety, and then how do you ensure that you're reaching to the right audiences, right? And when it comes to suitability, it's like one size doesn't fit everyone, right? Every child, as taking just Om's analogy ahead, right? Every child needs different level of nurturing, and different aspects needs to be taken care of. Similarly, it's true for all the brands also, right? Brands' ethos and policies are different. Their target audiences are different. So, for example, a lifestyle brand or a luxury brand might be okay advertising on content around swimsuiting, for example, right? But similar kind of content may not be suitable for some of the brands, right? Which are typically trendy. So the brand needs to really adopt to the content that's available and match that with their audiences and brand ethos and philosophies. And the main reason for this is that again, right? It's highly customizable, and the brand needs to deploy the strategies which suits them and not which are generally being rolled out by 100 other brands, right? And hence, in order to achieve that right balance in protection and coverage, the brands need to establish a clear understanding of the core brand values, which topics or events may or may not align with their values, and so on and so forth. And that's how the suitability kicks in.
Perfect. That's well put. And I'm glad you did bring in the aspect of brand suitability, which is my next question as well. And I completely agree, brand safety and brand suitability go hand in hand, and it is an interplay to be able to ensure superior media environments for brand for advertising, of course. So with that context, Kapil, let me ask you, what are the kind of unique challenges you as an Indian brand face when it comes to brand suitability, and how are you dealing with it?
Right. So I think from a brand safety and suitability perspective, brand safety is now can be easily tackled with the sort of a tools available or the settings available inside the platforms. Suitability, I think, is a much more complex because it's very subjective from a brand to brand. So some of the challenges that we saw, that most of if you look at the typical CPG spend, it's completely focused on a video, which is I won't name the platforms, but they won't allow the pre-bid sort of filtration of the content. So which means that before running the campaign, we don't know whether it's running on, let's say, it's suitable for my brand or not. I can only do a post-campaign analysis, I can get to know. So I can only do a post-campaign correction rather than the initial correction that I could have done. Another thing that I think is critical is a sentiment. For example, being a healthcare brand, when you run your sort of ads on a context like a COVID, it might be taken as that you are recommending somebody to take preventive sort of steps, but somebody who has suffered from it might take it completely in a negative zone altogether. So it's very, very subjective. And I think that's where even when we look at the contextual targeting that we try to do, still where the sentiment can sort of on which side it will move, it's pretty tough to predict. Especially when you do a display advertising, either you use a programmatic or you do direct buys. In both the cases, I think the sentiment is very tough to predict, and that's the challenge on social media as well. For example, you're running an ad, and on the feed, and all of a sudden an incident happened, and then people started talking negatively. For example, let's say Russia-Ukraine war. All of a sudden, a different sentiment is there, and you're running your ads on a leading social media platform. You might get trolled just because you're being there in that conversation feed. So there are different parts to it. I think another challenge it's more of an ecosystem challenge, not just an sort of a advertiser challenge, is the agility. So we work in an ecosystem. So we work with our media partners, the media agency partners. So how fast we can react before it becomes like somebody starts reacting negatively on your ad, which is not in the suitable environment, could be suitable according to us, might not be suitable as per the consumer. So I think that agility is also critical to sort of is a critical factor in suitability point of view. And another media challenge that I see that is now 90% of the consumption happening on mobile. All of us are completely focused on apps. Apps don't enable you to sort of do a sentiment analysis or let's say content analysis inside what's happening inside an app. So I think that's another challenge which I think we need to solve. And all at the expense of the reach that you want. Maybe on the one hand, you want a targeted reach, but what the suitability can bring on the table is completely different. So I think that's where I think that these are some of the key challenges that I think that can needs to be solved, but don't know how by when we'll be able to solve it as an industry, as an ecosystem.
Excellent. No, I think that was a brilliant recap. I think you touched upon all the pain points which marketers typically tend to face. And we'll talk more about some of them for sure as we move forward with the conversation. Om, sorry, we lost you. I'll come back to you in a bit. And I'll just quickly get a point of view from Govind. Govind, the way, Kapil shared some pain points around brand suitability and how they try to kind of combat it, etc. You operate in a very different space compared to the other marketers here on the panel. So how do you typically, tackle it, and what is your learning curve there?
Thanks, Monica, for having me here. And Kapil, I might need to borrow your agility word here and let me kind of give a context to why I would love to do that. Just for the benefit of audience, I think the point of view I have or the experience we have is I come from the B2B world, though it's Vodafone Idea and we as a brand, I think we go by we business. The first challenge I think is in the B2B world, trying to reach straddling all the way from CXOs, decision makers, all the way to the millions of SMBs. Your choice of platforms are a little narrower compared to a direct to consumer brand. But I don't think that's the challenge. The challenge I think is and I'm going to bring it alive from one of the experiences we had in a campaign without actually naming the platform, right? Some of the platforms, I think, take limited responsibility in what's flowing through their platforms. Be it content, in our case, it's the kind of products the marketplaces as the platforms put up. Now, it so turns out that I think the campaign goes live, but I think we suspect that obviously the performance was taking a hit, but also there is news about the reputation of the platform itself, which is about, I think there is a counterfeit products going through, etc. So I think suddenly you're concerned that is it a suitable platform? And did you know about it well in advance? When I say you, it could be me as a brand or an advertiser or even the agencies. So the key point I think is firstly, I think not knowing it is a disadvantage. I think we got to be a little more aware of the reputation of where the brand is actually going to manifest in the form of a campaign. The second part, I think, which is one the part that makes me a little gladder is the agility that comes with the digital world. You get to sense it, you know the metrics, something is not working, and I think your reaction times can be all the more quicker. So, and hence I think we got to kind of firstly do quite a lot on being informed about, I think, what are the right platforms where the brand is going to be highly more suitable. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think quite spot on. And I think today, thanks to a lot of technology and a lot of solutions, that you're able to deter a lot of these problems versus react to them. So that's really kind of helpful. Om, let me bring you back in. And I must say that that analogy really helped us set the tone. And we almost kind of, ran with your comments into many other layered discussions. But I'm going to kind of bring in another aspect, which I think you would be best suited to sort of help get a perspective. Being an FMCG and, being in the space you are, you're very active on social media. Right. And there are a number of emerging social platforms today. So as marketers, as a marketer, do you worry about brand safety in an environment where there's so much UGC content and, there's so much opinion-based content? How do you tackle brand safety in an environment like that?
Becomes very difficult, and that's the one-line short answer.
Sure.
But what I reckon is that while yes, there has been quite a bit of growth in the number of platforms which are there in the social media space operating now, I reckon they are also, each of those platforms, they are also trying to do their bit to become a little better at managing the content at their end, and more so that they are user generated content. So it becomes all the more important for those platforms to become very, very agile and leverage technology as much as they can. And thanks to the advancement in technologies around artificial intelligence, machine learning, and at times they are not enough. The artificial intelligence has its own limitations. However much of coding that you do, it's very difficult to codify emotions, and most of these content may be around emotions, and those emotions may be negative or wrong, and the artificial intelligence may not be able to decode it to that extent. So how do you tackle it? And that's where these platforms are also building an army of manual scavengers who are actually looking into these content individually, depending upon and they follow different algorithms. Not every content gets scavenged, but the content which is gaining quite a bit of viewership, that gets highlighted, and they manually scavenge. So I think all the partners that we work with, they're also working with us, and they're trying to assure us by various means and telling us that, yeah, we are taking brand safety very, very seriously. And what we also do is that monitor the incidence rate whenever we do a campaign like this with a random sample. And thankfully, our experiences have been good with all the platforms that we have been trying to work with. Experiences have been in the positive zone. Thankfully, we have not had a bad episode, but I would put the credit to the precaution that we have been taking, so to say, and also to the entire mechanism that the social media platforms are putting in place. So caution is the word, and a lot of kudos also goes to these multiple social media platforms and the initiatives that they are taking towards ensuring brand safety.
Makes sense. I think that's a fairly valuable perspective, and thank you for sharing it. Nachi, tell me, if you had to chime in here in terms of your experience over a larger, set of brands that you've been kind of engaged with, how are they tackling it? Is it similar to what you heard from Om? How are you as a technology platform trying to offer more support? Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think Om made a very valid point in terms of how platforms are kind of moderating the content. But all of us need to take this consideration in mind, and they're walking a very tightrope, right, from monetization to consumer engagement. Right? it's a very difficult balance to maintain because A, the platform is UGC heavy. B, the platform requires monetization from sustainability perspective. And at the same time, the advertisers need to believe and trust the platform, right? So all the platforms are working very closely with us in India as well as globally, right? To A, give protection to our customers, and they understand that they can't certify their own exam papers, right? You can't check your own exam papers and say that, hey, we are the best. So they believe that, they trust that, and that's why they work with third-party measurement partners so that we run our tags for our customers, and then we ensure that the brand safety is taken care of and the suitability is taken care of. All the unwanted content is being filtered out. And I'll just bring in Kapil's question here, right? So Kapil, you mentioned that some of the social platforms you can't run pre-bid. Yes, that was true till some time back, but now there are technologies using which you can actually deploy pre-bid solution on some of the platforms. I wouldn't say all of them, but a couple of large platforms definitely that we work with can give that pre-bid protection to you. And we as a company are committed to providing our customers and advertisers with transparency, right, into the quality of the entire media buy across the platforms, across channels, right? So you don't need any integrations, no server-to-server integrations. Nothing is required. Simple JavaScript tag that needs to get into the creative tag, and that's all, right? Then your job is done. When it comes to server-to-server integrations, then it becomes a publisher-side solution, right? It's no longer a third-party solution. And we take pride saying that we were in fact the first partners with YouTube and Facebook to kind of roll out brand safety on those platforms. So yeah, I think entire ecosystem is moving towards bettering the environment for marketers. But yeah, it requires a collaborative effort for sure.
Makes sense. And thank you for sharing that. In fact, you touched upon the piece on media quality and the need to continuously ensure that, the level of media quality is only improving for marketers, given the growing content in the ecosystem. So with that perspective, I was wondering, Shalini, if I can bring you in here to tell us, how much of a priority is media quality for you, and how much how much does it matter for you to really invest into it, even if it comes at a premium?
Yeah. So see, if I have to draw a parallel to explain quality.
Yeah.
So on TV, when we play our ad, it's the prime time that we focus on, right? Now, TV being a very limited inventory. So it's a finite inventory. So we know and we can judge that on prime time, we're reaching out to maximum audience and also the decision makers. Similarly, on digital, when there is a zillion of inventory available, the first challenge is to have 100% SOV, to reach out to everyone, which is not possible. And hence quality becomes very important. So while I'm reaching out to a wider audience, I am also making sure that I'm reaching to the right audience. And also, then again, so these quality parameters also then help me understand how my campaign has performed. So it's again a validation of campaign, whether it has been run also or not. That's another challenge. So that's one. Second, whether I'm reaching out to the right audience, right geography, customers, and everything. Third, if there are insights that I can build into my campaign to improve the performance and the deliveries. Beyond these, just the matrix and all that we already have in place, I think the another thing which is a very important task for a media is not only to serve the ad, but also to make it, we also have to ensure that consumer has actually viewed it and it's not just viewable, right? So here then I'll bring in the concept of attention matrix, which is something still WIP, but those metrics really help us, all to give insight even into our creatives, right? And for decision making on what work doesn't work, testing of creatives, and then everything leading to, of course, your sales, your campaign lifts, your brand equity, everything then ties back to that, and then we can close the loop actually. So yeah, so quality does matters in terms of digital, but it has a different way of looking at.
Agreed. Makes perfect sense. Govind, your views on the same question which I had for Shalini in terms of how much of a priority is media quality and how far would you go to make sure you have it optimal?
Yeah, Monica, I think, like I said, I think the amount of platforms that we play on are quite well defined. And hence, I think if I were to say in the design part of the campaign, the amount of time one spends on the assessment about the media we are picking and what's the quality, I think is quite enormous. I would say it's one of the, other than the creatives and the monies, I think this is an equally top 3 parameter. So, and I think what is working for us in this, on this parameter is, I think some of the programmatic world of digital advertising, the kind of depth of insights and analytics that you get on a near real-time basis just gives you all the more confidence that actually the quality of media you've chosen is working. At the same time, the metrics also tell you that if something isn't working, which means probably you kind of picked a slightly an inferior media. So in my view, I think that by design, it's one of the key parameters. Even at an operating stage, I think the feedback is so real time in this digital world that I think it continues to be one of the foremost discussions on our daily or a daily review of the campaign.
Any example you want to support that POV with? Would any example come to your mind?
So one example I think is, I mean, given that we are a brand which has both the consumer and enterprise, and I think many of the platforms, I think you have a mix of the audience. And it's actually sometimes good because there is a recall of the consumer brand. But at the same time, if the feedback is real time on a creative, which is probably getting misassociated with a slightly different product of your other brand, I think then you can fix it real time. I think it's not a question of media quality, but I think if the kind of media you're chosen is supporting you with these kind of insights, it just works much better. So I think I'm just giving you maybe a slightly different problem statement, but I think that's what I found pretty helpful in the discourse on media quality.
Sure. Now I'm going to kind of switch gears a bit. And, I'm going to share with you some data points which actually emerged from, a recent survey we did on understanding the brand safety ecosystem as MMA. Two data points, which I'll just table to you guys and then bring you in there is, 64% of the brand custodians said they were unsure about who's responsible for brand safety in the organization. And 42% of our respondents said that they lack the awareness about what are the threats, what are the challenges in a scenario where they're not equipped with the right blueprint, with the right safeguards and the right solution to combat safety and manage suitability. So with these 2 data points as a backdrop, my question is, do you really think that we as an industry are doing enough to educate and evangelize the community, the ecosystem on brand safety and the implications, if not enough is done about it? Do you think that are we doing enough? Kapil, you want to give it a shot? And then Om, I'm going to bring the question to you.
Yeah. So I think the way we talk about the other media metrics, about the engagement metrics, the attention metrics, and all, I don't think so. When we talk about KPIs in general with our media partners, we don't. The conversation about brand safety and brand suitability is just more of at a hygiene level. It's not a KPI so to say. And also I think we are relying a lot on the effort put in by the platforms, the big platforms, enabling especially after the 2020 and earlier scenarios. So the platform checks, we rely more on that. But when it comes to education, I don't think so enough is being done in the ecosystem so far, except few critical players, not the everybody who should be, so to say, the media agencies should take the lead because they are eventually talking to the clients directly on a day-to-day basis. So that's the, I think, one part. Other part, I think, is very critical from a transparency point of view. I won't touch it much, but I think that's also very critical. So when we talk to agencies, platforms, publishers, I think that's also very critical, that they should also let us know the sort of possibilities or the solutions that they are deploying to ensure that the inventory is safe. So it's not a day-to-day conversation, the brand safety and suitability. So that's what I'm trying to highlight. And what we need to do is more, maybe more webinars like this, maybe more guides for marketers, for publishers. I think that should be available, and I think that will make it and to bring more mainstream conversation rather than just having just a tick box check in terms of brand safety and all. Yeah, like we have started talking about viewability, which was not being talked about 5 years back.
Right.
Now, I think in another 1 or 2 years, I think we'll be talking about the brand safety, or maybe I mean, if I ask Nachiket, he'll say right now. So I think yes, we should be talking about the brand safety as soon as possible.
Yeah. I think at the back of the pandemic, we have to say it's right now, because the consumption has just, like really spiked. Om, what are your views? How do you think one can ensure more, better understanding and also more robust, preparatory platforms to adopt brand safety measures?
Yeah. When you ask the question to Kapil that whose responsibility should brand safety be, it took me back almost to my first job, which was on the shop floors of Mahindra.
Yeah.
And there on the shop floor it was written, safety is everybody's responsibility. So I would just borrow that line and say that brand safety is everybody's responsibility. People who are operating in the ecosystem, be it the advertisers, be it the platform owners or publishers, and of course the media agencies. While everybody would hold some role or the other, but I reckon the biggest responsibility on this would lie with people who are evangelizing a platform. So if I own a platform and I'm talking about it, that you should come and advertise on my platform, the biggest onus is with me to ensure that the environment is absolutely brand safe, right? And I as a platform already know that who am I inviting, which are the set of people who am I inviting, and the set of advertisers who are being represented on this in this webinar, they all would peg brand safety as something which is extremely uncompromisable and extremely fundamental. So, and this, I'm sure all of us, when we would be going to any platform, would want to highlight that this upfront, that this is absolutely critical to me, and we would not make any bit of compromise on this one. So the biggest responsibility would lie with the platforms. I reckon people like Nachiket are doing their bit in making sure that the advancement in the technologies are getting leveraged to better controls across platform, across the type of creatives and advertising assets, and also across the type of buying to be done. Because whatever we may say, but digital is a complicated medium to plan, trade, execute again a campaign on. So, and that's why you would find that the conversation of brand safety, while it may happen in the context of television as well, or newspaper as well, but I'm not too sure how prevalent that is. It is for a reason that brand safety, brand suitability gets talked about in a much aggressive pitch when it comes to digital. So I reckon everybody should be responsible for this one, but the platform owners would need to take the lead to making sure that it's like stepping into a building and the building says that this building is LEED certified, right? If you move into a cinema theater, they say that they've got the best of the safety awards from international bodies, and they are recognized. The practices for safety are recognized by the global bodies and certified by them. Similarly, the platforms will have to ensure that the inventory that they are offering is brand safe. And of course, but we, as I said in the beginning, caution is something that is very important. So we need to be cautious at our end. And I'm sure Nachiket would keep ensuring that the product keeps getting better so that it can catch all the issues pertaining to brand safety.
I think that was very wholesome. Thank you for sharing those inputs. And whilst, I would also like to chime in from a trade body standpoint on how we think as an industry we can do more together and what we're trying to do in that light. But having said that, I'm also going to request the audience to share their inputs, if any, on how we can increase adoption on brand safety and improve the level of education that exists in the ecosystem. We'd love to have your inputs, so please do put it on chat. And what I'm also going to do is, Nachiket, I'm going to bring you into this discussion which we are right now having. And we've heard from Kapil, we've heard from Om, and I think both of them have made some very distinct but very important points. From a platform standpoint, whilst yes, I cannot not agree that you are doing your part by, for example, hosting a webinar like that and trying to continuously educate the industry and the ecosystem on the need to be brand safe and the implications if you're not. But what do you think one can do, and how can we sort of increase the scale of the understanding?
I think I first of all, I must congratulate MMA as well, right? Because the effort MMA is taking to ensure the adaptability of brand safety solutions is phenomenal. With the council that you have and the Save Globally that you've launched, it's amazing, right? It's only gonna help. I think it's as Om rightly mentioned and also Kapil mentioned, right? It's a collective effort, right? Yes. Everybody needs to come together to address the issues at platform side, at advertiser side, at the technology side. Yes. Having said that, so we interestingly ran a research with Harris Paul a year, maybe a little more than a year ago. Then we asked who bears the responsibility of right placement of the ad, right? And surprisingly, 87% of the respondents mentioned that it's brand's responsibility. And then we started wondering, is it only the brand, right? Why can't the technology come into place? Why can't as Om mentioned, why can't platform come into place and ensure that it's a brand safe platform? But when it comes to audiences and consumers, their perception is, hey, this is the brand who is here. I don't want this brand to be here because I am the customer of that brand, right? And we see that on ongoing basis as well. So if you remember, one of the television channels few months back telecasted something which was totally bashed out publicly by a lot of people, including influencers, Bollywood influencers, TV influencers, right? And there was a brand who was sponsoring that particular segment. So they called out that brand saying, hey, you're not supposed to be present on this kind of content. It's polarizing the community. It's not doing well. So it's not only the consumer, a lot of influencers are active these days, right? Gone are the days where, an impression would have gone unnoticed. It would have been on a brand safe environment. One screenshot taken and put it on Twitter and it's done, right? The damage is done.
Right.
So all said and done, and the brands have spent millions of dollars over the years to build that reputation, suddenly goes for a toss for no reason, right? And it's not intentionally done by anyone. But it happens, right? And that's where I think when we started internalizing that data, we understood that when it comes to audiences, they believe that it's brand who needs to do a lot more compared to others. And as I said earlier, right, for publishers, it's always going to be a tightrope to walk on when it comes to monetization versus user growth and engagement, because if they keep on insisting filtering the videos and the content, then it's going to be difficult for them to sustain and survive. So yeah, I think organizations like MMA, technology players, brands and marketers and publishers needs to come together. And a lot more, I think, a guide for marketers, best practices, all that should be shared openly. And that's where I think we'll be able to make a difference.
Thank you so much. I think this is such an important discussion that we are having. And just to conclude that part before I move to my next question, is that you're absolutely right that the ecosystem needs to work together and collaborate on enabling brand safety and on continuously evolving the solutions that can enable brand safety, because content is ever evolving. Digital is a complex ecosystem. However, we as a body also believe that finally the ecosystem is enabling and empowering the marketer, right? So as long as the marketer is aware, educated and asking the right questions, there is no ways that the right solutions can't be kind of offered, or the right solutions cannot be implemented. But it's important that in the race of trying to get reach, frequency, leads, the marketer is not overlooking it. That's very important. So the marketer should not overlook the issue, should be on an ongoing basis educating himself, herself, and making the right investments to remain abreast and updated with brand safety toolkits. So I think that's how I would add our 2 bits, keeping in mind that it's a narrative we are super engaged with across the world, not just in India. Coming back to the topic, I'm going to, of course, I'm keeping in mind the time available. This is going to be my last question to the panelists, followed by maybe 1 or 2 questions from the audience, and then we'll bring this to a close. So this question is something which I'm going to go around the table and ask everybody. So therefore, just make note of the questions so you can sort of make a mental note of how you want to address it. So if each of you had to give a 1-line advice from your experience on what is the best practice or the best way to enable robust brand safety and brand suitability, what would you suggest or tell our audience today? I am just going to go in the sequence I see on my screen. So Shalini, I'm going to start with you.
Okay, so I won't say it's 1-liner, but yeah, I think the way to look at brand safety and suitability is to divide your focus on 3 principles. One is your activation, so whether you are placing it in the right geography, right audience. Second is your ad environment, whether it's safe environment or not. And third is the third will be your transparency. So whether, to looking into the undisclosed inventory that we have, and now that programmatic is becoming really big, that's the another area that needs to be more transparent. So when we are working on, I think these 3 principles can address most of the issues related to brand safety.
Thank you. That was short, though not a 1-liner. Nachi, next up is you.
So yeah, not a 1-liner again, but I think it's a fundamental right of marketers, right? And no marketers want to pay for non-viewable, fraudulent, or non-brand safe impression, right? So I think my first advice to marketers and everybody will be just demand brand safety, right? It's your fundamental right. You're not supposed to be paying for any compromised inventory or impression, right? And second thing is do it right, right? One needs to understand what brand demands. One needs to understand what your consumer and customer demands, what technologies are available, and then utilize the best tools available for you to ensure that your communication is not compromised in any way, and it's not your brand reputation is not at stake.
Right. Appreciate. That's a good one. Govind, next is you.
Yeah, I'll try and make it 1 line. I think it's one for all and all for one. Let me explain. I think the one for all is not just for the established brands, but even for the emerging brands, be it the SME companies or startups. How do we make this discourse more democratized, the information available in terms of brand safety and suitability as a mission? And all for one is about, I think, Om or someone kind of alluded to it. All members in the value chain of the digital advertising ecosystem actually work towards brand reputation or protection of it as a single most key objective. So it's one for all and all for one.
Not bad. That's a good way to look at it. Thank you so much. Om, your thoughts?
Yeah, put it into 2 buckets. The first one would be making sure that everyone in the value chain understands, respects, and tries to put all the due attention which is needed for brand safety. That's the first thing. And the second thing is to use technology as much as one can. because there's no other solution, right? It has to be a tech-enabled solution, and we have to leverage technology to ensure brand safety. Otherwise, it's just not possible. So hoping that the technical advancements keep happening, we nudge people like Nachiket to bring even better solutions. And it's not that good solutions are not available, but yeah, take technology so that it can be elevated to the next pedestal and to the next pedestal and to the next pedestal. And while making sure that everybody is aware. So it would be good to have someone from the brand, from the platform and the advertising agencies also being represented on such forums whenever it happens next.
Good thought. Makes sense. Thank you so much. Kapil, last, but of course, as valuable, what are your thoughts?
Yeah. So I think taking the example of driving a car, despite having a seat belt and having airbags, accident can still happen. So I think brand safety and suitability is something similar to that. So what we need to do, we just keep deep diving and keep track so that you know what's working, what's not working for you, especially for suitability perspective. And maybe things like if you're in a brand safe environment, a wrong creative or maybe creative which can be taken in a different sentiment altogether can lead to a lot of sort of turbulence for the brand. And as Om said, brand is like a child. So to keep it safe, I think we need to keep it tracking, keep social media listening, also put everything beyond just the typical tools and technology. I think we should keep all our eyes open to ensure that the brand stays safe and it grows. Yeah.
Makes sense. And I'm just going to add a one-liner from my side on this piece. We strongly believe that it's very important. Technology is going to be available. You're going to have publishers support you and, offer transparency. But what's at the end of the day most important, that you cultivate internal governance, which is very important, because if there's internal governance, then you're going to always ensure that you're on top of the issue and not derailing from it, irrespective of the KPIs, irrespective of the urgency and pressures of targets and all of it. So the internal governance management for brand safety is extremely important. Like Kapil, you said a while back, one just tends to sort of talk about it sometimes and then just forget about it, right? So that won't happen if there's internal governance, right? So I think between all of us, we've tried to share a lot of perspectives, and I think that's been very, very useful, and it's been a very wholesome discussion. And before I let you go, I'm going to try and take maybe one or maximum two audience questions, and then we'll bring the session to a close. I could let any of you pick up the question, else I'll sort of point one of you if I don't get volunteers. So this is an interesting question. So the question is, how does brand suitability affect ROI for brands? Would anyone want to give this a shot? It's a very relevant one. How does brand suitability affect ROI? Anyone?
Want me to take this?
Yeah, I would appreciate.
So again, ROI is subjective, right? So ROI has different meanings. ROI can be, your reach. ROI can be the clicks, the visits, the transactions, or the leads. But imagine this, right? You are running a campaign which is with creatives which are not viable. You're running a campaign with fraudulent inventory. You're running a campaign, your ads are on some, sorry for using this word, but crappy content, and then you are getting a click out of it, which will result into eventual action, right? Or even a reach for that matter, which that impression will lead to. And imagine a scenario where your creative, your communication is highly viable. It's in the right environment. It's not fraudulent. It's happening in a right geography that you intend to show it in. And then just compare these two impressions, right? So eventual output from the second scenario will always be better, irrespective of all the sciences and attribution and any technique that you deploy at the end of the day. And we've seen it more than enough times where the quality of your output and ROI grows significantly when you ensure that your basic quality parameters are checked, right? And that's how the ROI can be calculated. So ROI can be your viewable CPM, ROI can be your viewable reach. It just can't be a reach. It just can't be a CPM, right? Those are vanity matrices. But the reach that you have planned, have that gotten an opportunity to see, that's number one. And have they really seen the communication, that's number two, right? So all these matrices can be calculated, can be looked at, and then ROI can be established for sure. I hope that answers the question.
Absolutely. That's helpful. Thank you so much. And that brings me to my last question. And I think, again, a very interesting one to close on. It's very POV led. So I would urge any of the marketers on the panel to pick this one up. It's pretty interesting. So basically the question is that, do you think our advertisers will see the need to establish even more finely tuned set of controls to protect brands from ever-evolving topics, such as the pandemic, as well as polarizing subjects in political and social environments from across the world? So, there is a lot of noise immediately when there are any sensitive issues, right? Globally, and brands are always vulnerable to all of it. So going forward, do you think that there's a need to establish finer controls? Any thoughts? Om, you want to try that one?
Yeah, I think more than the controls, what's needed is that there are brands which exist even today which can have take on any topic under the sun and come absolutely unscathed. Even the respect goes a notch or two above for the kind of takes that they take. So it's not about how it's not about putting controls in place to wriggle out of such situation if you find yourself embroiled into. The first thing is, don't get into those situations. That's the golden rule, which Kapil was talking about in the beginning, that you may somehow suddenly, and God knows how, by what recipe and by what magical intervention, find yourself embroiled into controversy which you are not envisaged while designing the campaign. But God forbid if that happens, and the campaign or the creative manages to touch the chords which it was not supposed to touch, then of course containment is the best strategy possible. But I think more than the control environment and guardrails being put in place, it's about trying to earn that respect amongst the consumers, which allows you to have a POV, because that, I reckon, that respect needs to be earned over a long period of time, that a brand can have a POV on anything, and that would get respected by the consumers. So that's one thing, because controls and guardrails are restrictive in nature. They may stifle creativity. More controls would mean that people will stop taking any brand would stop taking a stab at fluid moments, right? And that would make marketing so dull. The real fun of marketing is that brands get a wide canvas to play with. So, of course, in exercising caution, making sure that the ideas are getting vetted by a series of experts and by everyone in the organization, taking legal opinion, taking Corpcom opinion, everything. You may have done everything right, but still the consumers would pan you. So it's more about being vigilant, but not getting too much bogged down by the controls and guardrails into this. Of course, some basic set of guardrails are important, but then we should not kill the creativity is what I would suggest on this.
Right. Wow. I'm so glad I heard what I heard, and that makes sense. And that sort of is refreshing, I'm sure, for a lot of marketers listening in. This was a fabulous discussion, I have to say, and we did manage to touch upon a range of aspects within brand safety and suitability, which are of absolute need to in terms of discussion and sort of education. So thank you so much for doing this session and for participating and sharing very candid views on everything we spoke. Completely appreciate it. And with that, I'm going to hand it back to Lloyd to, take it forward.
Thanks, Monica. Well, from all the interesting POVs and insights shared by all you experts, what stuck in my head was what Om mentioned: brand safety is everybody's responsibility. And it couldn't hold more true in today's highly dynamic times. Once again, thank you, Monica, for driving the session so seamlessly well. That was one hell of an amazing session. A big thank you to our speakers. Truly appreciate your insights and participation. A special shout out to Double Verify for bringing alive this rich and insightful session at that most appropriate time, where brand safety is gaining amazing amount of paramount importance. And an even bigger thank you to all you engaged attendees, without which this webinar would not have been complete. One last thing before I log off, just quickly want to share with you all a bit about our upcoming initiatives. Well, we have our annual Modern Marketing Reckoner, which is scheduled for release in the month of May, which the theme is Building Winning Marketing Organizations. It's an ideal toolkit for creating winning marketing organizations. We also have another report, which is the MMA EY Brand Safety Report, which is very much in sync with what we discussed today. It's titled Brand Safety Reimagined, a must-download toolkit. That's another one, which is a definitely a report which you all need to look forward to in the month of May. And the biggie is, of course, our annual marquee thought leadership event, Impact, which we are going hybrid this year. In fact, we are going to have 1 day of physical and 1 day of virtual happening on the 19th and 20th of May in Mumbai. You could scan the barcode to know of more details regarding Impact. So till we see you again at our next event, for more updates, follow us on our social media handles or visit our websites to stay updated on key insights and updates. Till then, have a lovely evening and thanks a lot for joining in. Take care.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye, everyone.